Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today I'm in conversation with Taurai Pambweyi, the General Manager of SATIB Insurance Brokers. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like, and to share. Let's get down to some work. Taurai Pambweyi, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor. My pleasure being here.
Pambweyi is a very unusual name. I looked at it and I tried to Google it and so forth. Talk to me about that name, Pambweyi.
Oh, yeah, very interesting, Trevor. So we come from Manicaland, Nyanga, an area called Nyatate. And the word Pambweyi came from, it was a nickname to our clan. And it was initially called Mapambweyi, which means what has provoked you. And my grandfather then decided to take the Pambweyi part and then pass it on as a second name to his kids. So interestingly, we come from a bigger clan called Vere. So if you get to Nyatate, you see all the Veres around, and if you Google Veres, you see a lot of them. But when it comes to the Pambweyi, it's coming from my father, who is the firstborn in the family, and then all his siblings, and it goes on and like that. Interestingly, when he passed away, my grandfather, his children could not even take him from the mortuary because his surname and their surname was different. So it's a very interesting scenario that we find ourselves and the name in.
And who had provoked him?
So there are a lot of things that were happening back then. It then spans back to his father as well, which is the grand to us. And a lot of things then happened back then, from a family wrangles and people moving from one area to another. And the grandfather thought that people surrounding him perhaps would belittling him. And as a result, that nickname, then that word started being rumbled around. And bearing in mind as well that Nyatate, Manicaland, Nyanga, we border Mozambique. So there's a lot of ways that would work this side of Zimbabwe and also across. So as a result of that, it then attached to him. And then from there, it then cascaded to his sibling, to his children. And then one of his children, who happens to be my grandfather, then decided to take it as the second.
Fascinating, the names we carry and the meaning of those names, isn't it?
True.
Yeah.
True.
You are, like we say, the general manager of SATIB Insurance Brokers. What does SATIB mean again? And you've been general manager since 2020.
Right. So SATIB Insurance Brokers, it's an abbreviation of a regional company. It stands for Safari and Tourism Insurance Brokers. So it spans back in 1990 when a family in South Africa decided to provide solutions for game, and which then also went into the tourism side space. And as a result of that, they provided a niche. They found a niche market, looked for cover to move game from one point to another, and then it grew as a household name in South Africa, and then they decided, and they realized that in SADC region, there's still that opportunity. So they then spun into Zimbabwe, Mauritius, Botswana,
So
Namibia,
it's originally a
Zambia.
South African company.
Precisely.
Fascinating. And you are now in the region. Which countries are you in the region?
So in the region, we have Botswana, we do have Zambia, Namibia, Mauritius, and Seychelles.
And talk to me about, because I get the sense that this is a specialist insurance brokerage. Talk to me about the services that you provide.
So the gap which was in the market, I'll narrow it down to Zimbabwe, was very simple. When people who are frequenting, for example, Victoria Falls want to come over, they look at this the liability aspect. If they are in Africa, if something happens to them, are they able to get quick assistance? And is the hotelier space also able to meet the liabilities that comes from them interacting with these foreigners when they are coming as tourists around? And most of the people that were frequent in that area are from litigious countries, your US, your Canada, and them, and the liabilities that they are used in their countries in excess of millions. So to get that cover locally of 1 million, for example, to say it's a public liability policy to cater for your guests if they come and they're injured, was a mammoth task for the local market. So the solution was then to look for risk carriers where they are coming from, who speak the same language, and then we then facilitated the whole transaction to the laws of market. So when they then realized that there is SATIB offering what we are used to, then it becomes a marketing opportunity also for the hotelier space. And as a result of that, those policies were hotcakes and in Victoria Falls and anyone who's in the tourism and safari space. So as we speak, we do control a chunk, 60% in that region. And the unfortunate part with insurance, over time, it tends to be mimicked. So people also then follow through.
I think everything in life gets, people copy you if you're doing something good, yeah?
So it started as an agent in Zimbabwe in 2008. And then 2010, and brokerage company was then set up. Then the Harare office then opened in 2013, trying to diversify away from the safari and tourism, and then look at the general side of things. So the Harare side, which is the Harare office, started in 2013, and I then joined them in 2015.
Tell me explain to us the lie of the land. You are a brokerage firm.
Yeah.
So you sit somewhere.
Right.
Talk to me about who sits this side and who sits that side, just as briefly as possible to help us understand what the insurance lie of the land looks like.
So the landscape from insurance, it starts from the person who wants insurance, which we call an insured, right? So, or call it customer. So Trevor here wants insurance. He then can go direct to the insurer who pays the claim. But in between the insurer, there is room for a broker. Broker works like your lawyer if you take it from the legal perspective. You have a person who has got a case at the court and they want a representation at the court.
You are that representation.
And we are basically the lawyers when it comes to insurance. And then behind the insurance company, they also have a reinsurance broker, because the reinsurance company want to have capacity to write more business. But you can't use your own shareholders' capital to write the risk. So you then spread your risk by use of reinsurance. So reinsurance happens to be then the insurance of insurance companies. And then we also have those in our landscape. And putting numbers into perspective, we have 27 insurance brokers. We do have 20 insurance companies. We have 10 reinsurance companies
in Zimbabwe.
Just trying to put things in perspective.
Yeah, very helpful.
And then you then go across the same risk, the same reinsurers in Zimbabwe. They say, let's spread our risk again. So it's that aspect of pulling resources together and spread the risk. Then they go beyond the borders, the reinsurance guys. And then that's when you start seeing them placing business in all over Africa, in the London market, in Asia. And when it comes to that level, it's then called retrocessionaires.
Wow.
So that's the landscape.
You also do political violence and terrorism, political violence and terrorism.
Sure.
Talk to me about that. I found that interesting.
Right. So
why that space and how do you do it?
Right. Remember how we come about a SATIB. We try to look for a gap, close the gap. All right. So we then started analyzing what was happening in the region, SADC region. We had cases in South Africa of uprisings. You have cases in Malawi. You have cases in Zambia, and then also had cases Mozambique, right? And then Zimbabwe. There were also cases of people protesting, and as a result of that, it then changed the narrative of the SADC region, where it became a hot potato for political violence. So as a result of that, we then went outside to check our partners, and we then realized that there is room to provide cover, because ordinarily these things are not covered by insurance. So you then want to look for who is the appetite for it. So you then approach your big guys, that's the Lloyds of the London market, and they do have appetite for such risk. And then you provide cover to say, if there is a riot leading to the destruction of property, which is excluded from your normal fire policy, then there is to be cover for it, but at an additional cost. So we are trying to say, yes, we have a fire policy, but there are things that are not covered. If we want to cover them, because we are looking and understanding the landscape in the SATIB region, not in Zimbabwe, SATIB region, right? And then you provide such solutions. And 2019, there were some protests in Zimbabwe, January, where people were protesting against the increasing fuel prices, which then resulted in certain retail shops being attacked and also ransacked. Goods were stolen or taken, and those policies which we had, we managed to test the pudding. And I'm happy to say
paid out.
We paid out, and I presided one case which was in excess of $500,000, and it was paid. And each time I passed through that branch, I said, it's insurance money.
Which kept them going.
It kept them going.
Yeah, but they were paying you, what would you call them?
Their premiums.
Their premiums,
yes.
They were paying.
So, look, allow me, if I can, to also
absolutely.
demystify the aspect that goes around saying insurance matsotsi. Thank you.
Before you go there, I've got my own issues with insurance.
Right.
So my understanding of insurance is these guys who are very excited to sign you up.
Right.
Sign you up, your premiums and so forth. When it comes to paying, insurance people basically don't want to pay. Wow. You have to justify reasons why they have to pay back, pay you for what you've gone through. You've been paying premiums. No, we can't pay this. No, this has changed.
The long and short of it, Trevor, you need a broker. All right,
you are a good salesperson, yeah?
Thank you for that. Okay, the reason why I say that is because insurance is a contract. And it's not everyone who do understand the terms and conditions. And also underpinning insurance business is the need to make profit. It's a business. So they put conditions to say we only pay in the event of, which we call insured periods.
Yeah.
So sometimes you come and say, guys, I want motor insurance. But do you know that in Zim we have 4 types of motor insurance? But you just come to the insurance company and say, I want insurance. Which one in particular? So a broker will then take you through to say, this is what you want, and this is what we have on offer. How do we meet the two? And you get signed up. The same broker, in the event of a loss, you go through the same channel. And what will make one a good insurance broker is the ability to get claims settled, not only settled, but being settled on time.
Right.
So I would say it's people crying that I've gone to the courts and the courts are not fair, or they were judging against me. But you have gone there and you don't know the landscape, and you want to be in that box talking to the magistrate on your own. Tell
me, how big is the terrorism and violence component of what you do? Is that a big percentage of the work you do?
It's a cyclical type of business.
Okay.
Usually people take that on board 2 years just before elections.
I see.
And then a year thereafter. So it's a cyclical type of business. Then we have some who then take it continuously because also the advanced market, they've seen that there is high appetite for the product when there is the actual risk. So they tend to differentiate the pricing of someone who has been loyal over the years with one who's coming on
just
board.
Coming into I'm being told we need to take a break. So we'll take a break. When we come back, I want us to go to where you started, 2019 to 2021, Organic Pantry. I found that very fascinating. And you'll explain to us why this accountant who is now selling insurance thought there could be a farmer. So viewers, don't you go away. See you on the other side.
When you want to go for something, try by all means to do it the right way, invest in the right people.
Welcome back to our conversation with Taurai Pambweyi, the General Manager of SATIB Insurance Brokers. Tell me, Taurai, how much of the Zimbabwean market is insured? What percentage are we talking about here?
Very interesting. Market penetration is less than 2%, which then means insurance is not really up there, the priority list of most Zimbabweans. And to attest to that, the premiums that are written in this market as of 31 December 2023 were around 235 million only. If you go down south, their insurance market is 8.1 billion USD. And one insurer, Santam, which is number one in South Africa, they write in excess of 2 billion premiums in a year. So one insurer writes
It's bigger than
the whole market.
Why? Why is penetration so slow so low rather in Zimbabwe? What explains that?
So there are a lot of factors that do affect insurance, and unfortunately, for the past 20 or so years in Zimbabwe, it was the insurance market was on the down receiving end, simply because insurance, just like the banking sector, they only as good as your economic activity. So if the market fundamentals or the economy is oiled and running like your advanced economies, you realize that also insurance picks up simply because there is disposable income. People can plan around their money. People are also, I would say, they have assets to insure. And so those things do affect, have affected us. Then you have the 2008 issue, which then also still cling in your head, everyone else, about insurance. Though a lot of work is being done to try to rectify, compensate whoever was shortchanged then, but it leaves a sour taste in the mind of a lot of people, and that creates a bit of a barrier.
Explain to people what you mean by what happened in 2008, just for the benefit of people out there.
Sure. So inflation was doing what it knows best, right? That was in 2008, just before dollarization. And as a result of that, the life side of things. So insurance, we have two arms. We have the short term, which the one I specialize in, that's property. Then you also have the life insurance side. So for example, in the life insurance, all the savings that people had done were washed away. And as a result of that, people were then feeling robbed. But what robbed is the issue of what I would say the currency aspect, right? So it then affected a lot of people when it comes to insurance or saving in Zimbabwe, and the need for people to cling to their little resources as opposed to transferring the risk to the next person, then reduced. So that's what happened in short in 2008.
We do have a quantum. What number are we talking about of what people feel they were shortchanged by?
Look,
a global number?
Yeah, they do have number, but I don't have this text with me now. But what I can tell you is at personal level, someone was contributing a heft amount of premiums from a life perspective, hoping that when they do retire, they get a sizable pension from their own savings through insurance. Right now, people are getting $50 or less. Right, and that is a short change in the mind of someone who has been putting more than $50 a month to pay the premiums for. So that's the narrative around that aspect.
So it's not worth my paying premiums. That's what you're basically battling against.
Sure.
Well, how do we compare with? You've compared us to Malawi, or to South Africa rather. How do we compare? Do you have the states for Malawi and Zambia, for instance?
Not necessarily, but why we benchmark with South Africa, it's a very advanced we have there. Suffice to say that in those countries that we've mentioned, including South Africa, you realize that the top insurers are being headed by Zimbabweans. For example, Santam, the group CEO, is a Zimbabwean. You go to Mozambique, the top players there, it's the Zimbabweans that are doing the show. So when it comes to knowing what needs to be done, Zimbabweans, they do know what needs to be done from an insurance perspective. But once the macro economic fundamentals are in place, there is room for us to redeem the industry, vindicate the industry, and then we pick it up from there.
So, I'm attracted by this. I can't run away from it. That you started a company in 2019 called Organic Pantry. Talk to me about why you did that and what the company is all about.
Wow, interesting. So 2020, the idea started around 2018, 2019.
How old were you then?
All right, should be 33.
Okay.
Right. So what then happened was we were looking for very aggressive with life. Say, what else can I do? I've established myself from career perspective, but I do have spare savings and also spare time. How can I play around with it? And it emanated from my drive on the dissertation I did at Masters. I was studying about the market linkage on goat farming. So when I was researching about that, I also then got attracted by the organic side of things, the health consciousness of our society now, and said, how best can I also play in that space? I was looking for something which is a bit of a niche, that mindset of a niche. Yeah, so I started doing horticulture products. With my friend. He was running his own farm. I was also doing my separate aspect. We were against partnerships. We then said, look, we still want to preserve, we can exchange notes, we can plan, but you run your stuff, I run my stuff. And but in terms of marketing and everything, we would then coordinate, So I started doing English cucumbers, tomatoes, and then later on I went into carrot farming, which is the one which then took the brand a bit further. And we managed to get some deals with retailers to the extent that what we were farming ourselves could not satisfy the demand that we had. So we ended up then starting to contract other farmers to come on the platform as well. And remember, my background, I'm a broker. It was easy to set up. And then we started running that stuff.
Is the business still running now?
No.
No, why?
So what I then realized, in 2020, I got promoted to broking manager. And my time in demand started heavy because it was owner managed. And I also had a baby in 2021. So a lot of pressure from the head of the family. And I realized that my career was also suffering. I ran for about 8 months using the team that I've set up, the organic pantry. But I realized when it comes to farming, if you are not on the ground, they will always find a loophole.
This is where it would have been wise for you to have a partnership with your friend,
Exactly.
no?
Exactly. So he is still going because he managed to find a solution.
He's still going?
Yes, from my, the lessons that we learned from my end.
Okay.
Then said, okay, for your end, try to do A, B, C, D to ring fence and come up with proper system that will work, where you can even manage when you are not staying on the farm. And so the lesson I got from there is number one, when you set up yourself for something, you need also to look for system to put in place so that the business can run independent of you, rather than that it only makes profits when you're
around.
If you're not there, then people. And then also people's skills. It's not only that people look for loopholes if you are not there. If you set up the right team, proper engagement in terms of recruitment, looking for proper qualities of someone to come to do farming. Because sometimes my team really, I'm not apologetic to say it, I was looking for the youngsters that I know and they're doing nothing. Not that they wanted the job. And then you start to do on the job training. And it's on shortcomings because by my background, I'm not a farmer as well. So a lot of training, which perhaps was half-baked. So when you want to go for something, try by all means to do it the right way, invest in the right people. If I had an agronomist, for example, as part of my team, things would have turned other way around.
You are into car hire since 2020. That's still happening. You should have got that business right now.
That one's still running.
Just briefly, why did you go into that space? It's not niche.
No, it's not.
Why did you go into that space?
2018, I got one big company in that space who I lent my car and they started using it. And I tested the money. It was quite nice, Trevor. During the election
At least you're being honest. Yeah,
I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I have more than 2. And me and Mrs. can only drive 2 at a time. Why not look for more clients and run with that? So we got into a partnership.
This time partnership
with one company called Legit Car Rentals, And then we partnered. And since then, it's been growing. My fleet has grown. Their fleet is also growing.
Well, how big is your fleet?
I have 7 vehicles.
Okay.
Something that I can manage, and that one is being
What
managed by
market are you
Mrs.
servicing?
We are working with diaspora market mainly, and for 2 main reasons.
Yeah.
You have a longer contract with one driver, as opposed to be 2 days with this one, 3 days, and then your car is being also served, and your mileage.
So
is
your
not much.
diaspora market, they use your cars when they're here.
When they're
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
So when they come for the holidays, they then use our vehicles.
Okay.
And then when they go, we return our vehicles.
And your management team?
Yes, on that aspect, that unit is being run by Mrs., my wife, and she's busy with that and growing the fleet. And we also, because we have the terms and conditions with the guys that we've partnered with this time, at least it's a matter of just looking at the terms of reference in terms of how we then transact between ourselves. So we partnered together so that we have a wide range of vehicles, because people's tastes are different. So that then gave us a bit of muscle to attract a wider pool of clients. That's why we've partnered.
So you are the general manager, like we said, of SATIB Insurance Brokers. 2011 to 2014, rather 2011, you joined Alexander Forbes. For you, when you look at your career, what have been the defining moments from your start to where you are right now? What have been your defining moments?
Interesting, Trevor. It's when you look back, then you realize, wow, the Lord has been good to me, you know. And so the defining moment was the growth at Alexander Forbes and the training that we went through. It opened my mind to start with, and it also put us there to shine as a youngster coming from college. Sometimes you don't know what exactly you want, just want a job. And then when you then thrown under the deep, it then opened my mind. For example, when I was at Alexander Forbes, my boss then, when on a Friday, when I started on Monday, when he realized that I'm an Adventist, then he said, "Oh shucks."
When you realized you're an Adventist?
Yeah, because he said, broking, you need to be a 24/7 service provider. And you are telling me you will not be coming to work the following day? And, you know, for me, I thought, wow, I did a wrong move to coming over here. But the work that I put through, there was no need for me to report for duty on Saturday. All right. So it was that aspect of working hard, putting more extra hours, and also leaving everything to God. And then things then started shaping up, and the doors were opening, and you would deliver. And if there are any high-stake challenges in terms of claims, you would. I remember my first job. I was junior broker, and I was doing claims predominantly, and I was thrown under the bus because I was given one of a client which had 500 horses and 1,000 trailers. And they are cross-border, even up to now. And the Zim claims are not a problem. It's when they have claims in South Africa, Mozambique, Zambia, in DRC. And I had to coordinate those claims. And when we would go for the meeting, I think for me that was a breaking point, because when I go for the meeting with my boss back then, I would recall the truck number and the reg number of the truck when we are exchanging notes on the claims update. And to the amazement of the client, of my bosses, and say, you really committed and things are moving. When someone then interposes the number, say, no, if it comes to, for example, AFG, what number, it's the fleet number is. So they then realized the commitment that was there and the need to make sure that we pull down or reduce the number of claims in the pipeline to their satisfaction. And I think that attracted a bit of traction from the client side and even from my bosses, to the extent that the CFO at that company then said, I want to mentor you. And we've been together since then up to now.
Wow. You were headhunted. That must feel very special to be headhunted.
Not to brag, but to say things as they are true. It feels good. But suffice to say, I've only done one interview here in my life, when I was from college joining ECGC. That was the only interview I did. Thereafter, I was being called for the job. It was made to say, are you able to settle for this? And then if it's the interview, perhaps it was on the job. when you're then doing the work, what are you going to offer and stuff? And when I was head athlete for at SATIB, it was enlightening. But again, as a young man, you need to clip your wings.
Doesn't that get into your head?
I think the background then played a bit of a huge role because being Pombas was never part of the trait that resides in me. And that, while there's a temptation too, but it didn't really get into. And I wasn't really sure anyway, because I was joining a team of, 4? The other side. And I was coming from a bigger pool where we have about, 28 team members, Alexander Forbes. So coming to a small team, it was a difficult challenge. It was a challenge.
Interesting. You've got a very interesting life. You are a lay preacher. You get involved in philanthropy. So when you come back, we're going to get into that space of your life. So viewers, please don't go away. Join us on the other side for this very informative conversation.
The upbringing was tough, as in any ghetto. You would see your parents doing all they can to put food on the table.
Welcome back to our conversation with Taurai Pambweyi, the General Manager of SATIB Insurance Brokers. Taurai, you are 38 years old and your career is cruising. What's your sense when you look at or when you hear young people saying they're battling, they're struggling, particularly given the fact that you say you've only attended one interview in your life?
That's a very interesting question, Trevor, because I do believe that the Lord does have the plans for each and everyone, and my path is different from others. And I think the expected ending, according to Jeremiah, that he wants to usher me is the one that I can only attest to say it's nothing of my own. It's the Lord that has been leading me. I would want to say I've done this and that, but to be honest, for me to be able to do those things, it's because of that enabling. However, there are also other aspects that do come into play to say, as an individual, to what extent have you put a mind to the trajectory of what you want to do? Life is a way of conspiring to meet certain expectation and a certain path. But as a person, have you set down to say, this is the person that I want to be and the direction I want to take? And I would like to say, growing up, I think that is also shaped me in terms of the family background, where it was inculcated. My dad has always been my cheerleader. I don't recall an instance where he then say, you need to study. I would study, because whatever he did to the
but things are tough. I mean, what do you say to that?
Certainly. When it comes to economic activity and formal employment, we do have a challenge. Agreed. However, the few companies that are still operating, it means there are people that are running them. And I'm saying that it's God's providence that you find certain people also applying in that trade. And one thing also need to put into account is the fact that we need to start to take into account the things that are happening now in our generation. This is a global market, and we have to think likewise. And number two, there are certain areas as well where we need to know that it's not the fallacy we had or used to say, go to school, good grades, get a job. I think we have to change the end bit, create jobs. And there's need for that. And if we have youngsters occupying those spaces, we also need to take into account how best do we help our fellow brothers to come into mainstream. Whatever we are doing, be it you're an accountant, you're an insurance practitioner, or you are into manufacturing, whatever space, what else can be done innovatively to make sure that you open the space for more people to come into play? I think it's very critical to have that perspective as well.
You were born in Harare, and then you went to Wedza. then Glenview. Talk to me about you've already mentioned that your dad is your cheerleader. Talk to me about where the encouragement that you've gotten from your parents and your upbringing.
Yeah, sure. I would say I was born in ghetto, and so it's a ghetto child.
Me too.
Oh, right. So the upbringing was tough, as in any ghetto. You would see your parents doing all they can to put food on the table, and some lessons that they would then bring to you is, if I can do this for you guys, and you are the four of you, you also need to do it to your children. And the question is how. You know, and my mother ended up opening a flea market, and she was selling so that she could complement what Dad was doing.
What was Dad doing?
He used to work at Barzem as a stores manager. He's still working, but out of liking with Butchman at the moment. Same line of work. He's into yellow equipment, and he enjoys what he does.
Yeah.
And as a cheerleader, because me and the person that I've come after, my brother, it's 5 years apart. So I could see the pressure that he was putting on these two. And just from seeing that pressure, that also cascading to me, and I started to follow suit. And Lone Ranger growing up, because the 5-year gap, they didn't want to play with me. Natural.
Yeah.
And as a result of the cheerleading aspect, he changed his parenting style, I think. He was tough to my two brothers. He wanted the best out of them, so they were under pressure. And because we didn't have a sister who was at the top, sister only came after me, would do everything as the male.
You are the third boy.
I'm the third boy, born, and the last born as well. So we do everything.
The last boy, yeah.
So we do everything in the household. So the daily chores, when Mama is not around, we have to make sure that the house is clean. So the discipline that comes from doing the work to that immaculate. My mother was very particular. She would, those cobra flows, she would come. If she doesn't see her face, she would say, "You haven't done it yet. Please start." So that gave, they would say, there is no boy, there is no girl. You're all children. And that then encountered, I think, in us, the need to work extra hard in everything that we do, and that you have that extra touch. And then changed his parenting style a bit to being a cheerleader as two, because he had seen perhaps it was not working. And I think in me it did work. I'm not sure with my sister.
Yeah. So you went to, which school did you go to?
Right, so I went to, so my grade 1 and 2, 3, I was in Rambanapasi Primary School in Weza.
In the Sticks?
Right, there. And we then moved back to Harare, 94, and I continued my primary education at Glenview 3 Primary School. And then from there, I moved. By the way, I passed my ZJC, my grade 7.
That's what young people don't realize, that we had to do ZJC and then O levels and then A levels, and you're being sifted throughout.
Exactly. And then I then moved to Glenview High 1 from Form 1 to 4, moved to Highfield High 1 for my A level. Interestingly, on Form 1 to 4, the headmaster then was doing a thesis, and he wanted to see the behavior and the results impact if kids are learning on their own and girls. But this was a mixed school. So the A class was full of 50 girls. B class was for 50 boys, sharp kids. And then because of that, I think it also helped me to develop to who I am today. And in our class, we have people who are already working at Google because of that. And I'm here. I have people like Chad, who's same class, from 1 to 6.
Chad Marco, who sat in that chair before, yeah?
Certainly, yeah. So I think it helped. It also helped because it was more of a no-nonsense class, because they wanted all the needed environment set up was put to make sure that the experiment would work. And it did work in us. I would say in our class, everyone passed. The question
is that still going on?
No, it was when he left, it then disbanded as well.
Sad, isn't it?
Said, yeah.
Then you went to, you studied NAST, BCom Risk Management, and you said you wanted to do this badly. Why did you want to become an accountant?
All right. So when we moved to A-level, the career guidance, so to start with, I was struggling, what do I do at A-level?
Yeah.
And one of my Pathfinder directors then from church then set me down because I could do business studies or commercial subjects, or I could do arts because I'd passed in even sciences. Then I wanted to be a doctor because the family, everyone was a doctor. They want to be a doctor, you know. And then he set me down. I think that's where mentorship indirectly. And then he said, look, if you don't then hit 15 points, you will not be a doctor. But there's room and there's need for you to consider commercial subject. So I take that on board. I went home, spoke to my parents. They agreed to it. I was the first one to go to A-level anyway. So we were consulting a lot. And then I moved and did those subjects. And then when we were there, PwC came to our school and they marketed accountancy. And I fell in love. They were in those suits looking sharp.
Wow.
And I
That's what made you want to be an
accountant.
You saw role models that inspired you to be that.
Certainly. And then God had his fate. And then I applied. I had 13 points. And the subject which I felt was accounts, interestingly. Suffice to say, when I was, Form 5, Form 6, I was a top student in accounts. To the extent I would not revise, I would say, people come with your problems, I'll solve it for you.
You're solving other people's problems.
Right. So then from there, I ended up doing risk management. And my dad is my cheerleader. At NAST now. My dad is a cheerleader as usual. Then said, look, I will finance. You can do CIS so that you continue with your passion. That's how I then enrolled NAST, and he was also paying for that. But during the course of that, I went up to Part B, and then the lecturers and everyone was then saying, but why are you putting yourself under pressure? These are two career paths which are different. Choose what you want and move forward. Then I ended up dropping that aspect, that point in time, and then continued with my studies in risk management, which I don't regret.
Oh, wow, you haven't looked backwards at all. You are a lay preacher. Is there a likelihood that you might become a full-time preacher?
Not sure, hey? When it comes to spiritual matters, it's a matter of calling. If the calling does come, hopefully, perhaps I would take that route. But I like studying the Bible, the history in it, the romance in it, the counsel and everything. Keep fascinating me.
It's a beautiful book to read.
It is. Everything you want, you find it. And of late, I've been studying with the rabbis through online just to understand the Old Testament from a different perspective. Yeah. And it's enriching, to be honest, and it helps when you are breaking bread to children of God.
What has influenced you to work with the Junior Chamber International and Rotary International? Why do you do that?
Ubuntu resides in us as Africans. What can I also do to help the next person? So that's then attracted me to JCI, and it was also to say, how do I polish myself? Because you are interacting with also people of your same age, people who have also then become part of your sounding board.
So you deliberately sat down and said, this is what I want to do.
Exactly. So I then went into JCI. I had a brief stint there, and the Rotary as well. And of late, I'm a member of CEO Africa Roundtable. These are deliberate association to
that you go for.
Yeah, to self-develop.
What are you aiming for in doing all that?
I'm aiming to leave a mark in the business circles and to have people with risk management and insurance mindsets in the decision-making arena. That's basically what I'm aiming for.
So what have you learned from being a member of the Junior Chamber International and Rotary International? What have you picked from?
Two main lessons for me is teamwork, where you have a meeting of minds and then you bring together resources and then you solve a problem. So that's number teamwork. Then number two is to have an eye for gaps in the society and the ability to then close that gap. Those are things that I think I've carried over the years to say, if there is a problem, how do we mobilize ourselves to close the gap?
Who has influenced you the most in your life?
Well, I have different facets.
Yeah.
And different people,
Let's go through it.
Right. So Lakson Zembe is one of a Rotarian as well, and my mentor as well. He does play a very influential role in what I do. I've a CFO at TM Supermarkets, Pick and Pay, Gamunya Mzinga. He has played a huge role in who I am today.
In what way?
I'll start with Lakson. Lakson balances me the business and the spiritual aspect because we go to the same church as well. When it comes to Gamu, with Gamu it's very interesting because we are 2 years apart. So it is more of an all-rounder in everything, and is also part of my sounding board, so to speak. If I'm having challenges, it's a matter of saying, let's put it on the table. And then we dissect items, be it lifestyle, what you want to be, where you want to go next, and the like, to the extent that we had a long fight preparing for Trevor, conversation with Trevor.
Tell me about the fight. What was the fight about?
So when the invite came,
yeah,
I'll be honest, unlike what I always do, my first response was, not now. Then to him was, so when? Are you going to then talk to Trevor's team, said, right now I'm ready. Do you think the world will wait for you? So that was the struggle. I said, but I don't have a story to tell. I said, but you are living, so you have a story to tell. So that was the struggle that was going.
Interesting struggle. Would you recommend mentorship, having a mentor to young people out there?
I think now it's more needed than ever before because the landscape has changed. When people were growing up back then, your era, the whole community would raise one and we become an all-rounder because everyone is looking after you. Right now, we are more individualistic in approach in how we lead our families. So you would grow up with blind spots. And then the role of a mentor now, it will help you to unmask you rather in those areas. And I don't think you would survive without a mentor in every aspect.
I hope the young people are paying attention out there. Taurai, wow, you're 38 years old. I get the sense that you are just taking off. And I wish you nothing but the very best in what you do. So thank you so much. And I can sense the passion, the ambition, and the sky is not the limit for you, hey? Before we go, we have to do books, hey? I know I say it to people, I'm reading this book. Wow, what a book. What a book. What a book. It's a painful book to read, but it's a book that I recommend. It's a book that takes us to the ugly times of colonialism. King Leopold messed up the DRC, and it's making me understand why the DRC is what it is right now, because of King Leopold. Colonialism was bad. This book, I recommend it. It's not easy to read, it's tough, but it reminds us of how we've gotten where we are right now. The interruption that colonialism was to Africa. What books are you recommending? You brought some books here, right? What books are you recommending?
So, as a Christian, there's a little book here.
And by the way, we don't invite Christians only to this show, but it's amazing how many people that come onto this show are Christians. You were saying...
Right, so this is Steps to Christ, written by Ellen G. White. And it's a very small book which changed my prayer life. One of the topics which in this little book is called The Privilege of Prayer. And it does give the basics of...
And you have used it. It looks very used.
I've read this more than 10 times.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. What other books have you brought for us?
Of late, I'm reading more on the leadership aspect. By the way, I was general manager from from September last year. Right. So the rules of management by Richard Templer is helping me, and you've got 107 rules in there. Interestingly, 37 of those as how to manage the team, 70 how to manage yourself.
Of course.
And
how do you manage yourself?
Well, how I manage myself is to do with what I've read around, but the first aspect for me is taking the lead from the Bible, how Moses managed to move through with the Israelites. Is my anchor model when it comes to leadership, the humility and the interceding aspect, and also being part of the people. And that has helped to make sure that I remain connected to God in everything that I do. And that has helped to calm even when you have a claim which you know is not going to be paid.
Two more books you have?
Yeah, sure. Quickly, this is the Blue Ocean Strategy, Demystifying the Market Boundaries. Insurance, I will tell you, especially in Zimbabwe, is a red ocean. And this book changed my mindset, how I look at the market, deconstructing, declustering the market, and the boundaries that are set. So
Fantastic.
This is...
and then you've got the 5 a.m. Club.
Oh, yes.
It's a very popular book here. Everybody has read it, so you don't have to explain that.
Sure.
Wow, Taurai, thank you so much. We wish you all the very best. You're 38. I'm sure you're going to be back here having done something big, like acquiring an insurance company or going globally. We wish you all the very best.
Thank you,
Thank
Trevor.
you so much. Allow me to turn to our viewers who are all over the world to say thank you so much for your support. Remember, we are a weekly show. We are out on YouTube 7 a.m. Central African time every Monday. And to ensure that you don't miss out on any of this quality conversation, I invite you to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll get a notification that tells you we have a new show up. Subscribe, share, and like. And also, we see your comments below the video. Keep sharing as to who you'd want to come onto the show, and we love your views and your feedback. Until next time, cheers to you all.